Let's see here. All right, guys, how y'all doing? This is the Not Okay podcast, and I am Zach, and this is Tyler. And we tried to bring this episode to you last week, but we had some internet issues in the neighborhood and wasn't able to do it. And we're excited about bringing it today.
Yeah, man. Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to finally be back and be live with you guys. We took a short break. We're just two average guys like we talked about in the beginning, so we had some life stuff that we had to get to, right?
Yeah.
But this episode is actually really cool, one that I'm super passionate about, and Zach is actually going to teach us a little bit of history. He's going to school us today, so you're going to learn something that you might not have known before. He is going to be talking about Michelin Stars and what those are.
So it was a surprise to me, and it actually kind of got me a little bit excited whenever I realized, not probably 2 months ago, that the Michelin Star is attached to the Michelin Tire Company.
Yeah.
I did not know that they were one and the same.
I did not either.
And I felt like an idiot whenever I figured it out, because it seems like it should have just made sense.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the name, right, is the first thing that would bring you to what should make sense. But who would have thought tires and restaurants would have gone together? I mean, those aren't just two logic. You don't logically go from tires to restaurants.
No, you don't. And that's one of the interesting things about the Michelin Star is that it didn't just go straight from, tires to restaurants.
Right.
So
tell us how you got there.
Okay.
How did they get there, Zach? Tell us.
So the Michelin brothers, they started a little thing called the Michelin Guide back in 1889.
Okay.
All right. This is around the beginning of cars coming into existence.
Sure.
And travel just wasn't a common thing where you could get somewhere fairly quickly.
All right.
All right. So the brothers had this really good idea that said that when you bought a set of tires, you got this thing called the Michelin Guide.
Okay.
And it had a list of gas stations. It had a list of mechanics. It even had a guide on how to change a tire on the side of the road.
Well, that would make sense coming from a tire company, right?
And this all started in their hometown in France. Right?
France?
Yes.
Why is it that I thought Michelin was an American company?
It's because they're everywhere.
I guess in America, right?
Yeah.
Am I the only one that thought Michelin was... All right, so when you started this process and you started to dive into it, did you think Michelin was an American company, or did you know they were from France?
I did not know they were from France. To be honest with you, it never crossed my mind where they were from. I always just assumed that they were an American-based company just because...
we're self-centered human beings here in America. Everything's from America. Everything good is from America. Okay, sorry, keep going.
But yeah, so they developed this guide, and they figured out that people loved it, and they started adding in little tidbits as they go. They started hiring cartographers. Cartographers.
It's a tough word.
Yes, it is. Really good map drawers. And they actually still have some of the best maps of Europe in existence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I went into a little bit of a search.
Okay.
And when you look up Michelin maps, they're everywhere on the internet of Europe and France.
Like old Michelin maps?
Like new ones, old ones.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Are they still doing it?
It looks like they're still making and updating maps.
Oh, really? Seriously?
Yes.
Even with Google Maps and Google and all that?
Yep.
I guess it's just the tradition, right? I mean, the French, it's the whole European thing. They're into their traditions over there. Anyways, I keep throwing you off.
No. You're good. You're good. So as time went on, and when you get around to the 1920s, before this, the publication was completely free.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
And
except if you bought a pair of tires.
Yeah, but there were so many copies of it. It wasn't hard to get your hands on a copy of the Michelin Guide.
Okay.
And so you see this transition after one of the brothers goes into a tire shop and sees the Michelin Guide holding up a table. And this upsets him just a little bit.
Right.
And he develops this philosophy after this is people only want what they pay for.
Okay, I'll go a step further. People only appreciate what they pay for.
Yeah.
What they sacrifice for. Money is sacrifice, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's a paperback sacrifice when you pay for something. So yeah, okay. Yeah.
And so once they started doing the paid part of it, they started like investing back into the guide, right? At this point, they started hiring people to go around and like go to local places and rate them and like secret shopper type stuff.
Gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
And that's whenever the guide started coming out, and it started focusing on restaurants. I believe it's like 1926. Yeah, so it was restaurants and hotels, and the first award was given in 1926.
Okay, and it was a star award?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And if you haven't seen it, the Michelin Star does not look like a star.
No. I keep learning things here. Okay, why call it a star if it doesn't look like a star? Is there any way you can show me?
I sure can. Yeah, it is
a star that doesn't look like a star. Perfect. Yep, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah. I don't know why they called it wrong keyboard. All right. Sorry. Images. So,
can you?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So this right here, guys, is the Michelin. Like, I don't like. Do you call that a star?
It kind of is. It did Yelp rip them off? Doesn't it kind of look like the Yelp?
I don't know. Let's find out. Let's see.
All right, so the first star was in 1926. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
I'm terrible at getting Zach sidetracked. I was just so enamored with the fact that... Yes, it does!
It does.
I told you. Oh, that is almost copyright infringement.
It is real close. There's a few less clovers, or less petals. But
I guess that's how you get them. And one is obviously more... when one's larger than the other. That is awfully close, though.
That is very close.
And what does Yelp do? Yelp reviews restaurants. I didn't know that. That is
a little bit...
yeah, isn't it? Isn't it? Making the connection. Conspiracy theory. You heard it here first.
Yep. So that is the first Michelin star was given in 1926. I couldn't find what I was actually given to.
Okay, yeah.
But it was... It's pretty cool that it goes back that far, right? And so you have this period of like 40 years before they're actually giving their first award. And so it really made a big transition starting in the 20s.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Before they found their niche, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were started off as something and transitioned into something else.
Mm-hmm. So after that, they developed a 3-star system in 1936. All right.
10 years after the first award.
They developed their 3-star system.
Okay.
And this is, I actually really love this rating system.
Okay.
All right. So if you get 1 star, 1 Michelin star, all right, that means high quality cooking worth a stop. Okay.
All right.
2 stars is excellent cooking worth the detour.
Oh yeah. So off your normal route to go to this
we're going to go
restaurant.
out of our way to go to this one, right?
Sure.
And 3 stars is exceptional cuisine worth a special trip.
Yeah.
All right.
Does that still hold validity today? Do you think it's still a good rating system today? Or have people just have completely forgotten? Well, first off, the average person doesn't know what the stars mean anyways. You probably have to be in the industry.
Yeah. I would say that if the average person heard that it was a Michelin star restaurant, they don't know if it's 1, 2, 3 stars. Like it's not. But yeah, that gets kind of like to where we are now, where the star is super important for some. like for a lot of restaurants. Like it is like the end all be all of ratings. And this is something that
all this time later, that's wild. Almost 100 years after they gave their first award, they are still using this system to judge the quality of the restaurant and the chef and ownership. That says something. That an award still means that much. Now,
yeah.
my true question is are the people judging this system worth their? They have to be, right? If the industry itself still validates this system, then the people that are doing the judging have to be legit.
Yeah, and that is something really interesting about their judging process is they have judges who go out and secret shop, right? Or secret dine. And they will visit a place like 12 times before they give them the award.
And it's a secret shop, right?
And
it's not like when a food critic comes in.
Yeah, it's not like a food critic comes in. And it's so secret who the people are that like only like 3 people in the company know who the secret shoppers are.
That makes that even better. They're like ghost Michelin Star agents that only 3. Wow. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, actually. I didn't know that. I didn't know that they visited the restaurant like 12 times.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense because now what we're doing is we're eliminating the ability for somebody to have an off night. Now we can we have a sample size, and in that sample size, it's statistics, right? Yeah. Anyways, all right, cool.
Yeah, and okay, so this is this is kind of my last point, but this is also one of my favorite things about the whole system.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, so if you don't know, the Michelin Man has a name.
Yeah, it's Michelin Man.
No, it's Bib.
Bib
the Michelin Man.
Okay.
Right? And they have a category called the Bib Gourmand, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Okay.
All right.
That sounds right.
Yeah. It is great food at a moderate price.
Really?
Yeah. And so they have a list of restaurants that, like, I'm assuming, like, while their guys are driving around, like, dining at places, they stop at these random places that are decently priced.
Sure. That are never going to get a Michelin star, but they want recognition.
Yeah.
Do they still have?
It is not based on the interior of the restaurant.
No,
it is strictly the food.
Food, really?
Like, it's not based on the service.
Okay.
So
all
it is.
Okay.
This is good food.
All right, just good food.
Yep.
Where can I find that list? That's the list I want to see.
Yeah, so you
for
can
the
find
average man.
The Michelin Guide is on the internet. Like you can, like Michelin has it. Now here's where it gets a little bit sad. All right, they don't go hardly anywhere. Wait
a minute. What do you mean?
California, like in the U.S., it's California, New York, Chicago. They don't even have anything for Dallas or Houston.
Okay.
Like it is.
Or Atlanta, which is like the New York of the South.
Yeah. It's just like Washington, D.C., it's New York, it's Chicago.
I guess you can't be everywhere all the time.
No,
you can't. And then, too, also, you can't water your list down.
You can't. And I imagine that it may follow chefs more than it does actual restaurants.
That makes sense.
So if like you have these like big cooking schools and you get these guys come out of it and they get like I imagine that has a lot to do with how. And this is just speculation. I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think it does actually follow the chef. I don't know. You know what? I'm only saying that because I've watched TV shows. I have no idea if it's freaking.
If you're a Michelin,
you're the one teaching me.
Yeah.
So
if you're a Michelin chef, right?
Yeah.
And let's say that restaurant loses Michelin star after you leave, are you still a Michelin chef?
Like a Michelin star chef, a 1-star chef.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like I imagine that's huge hiring. Like you probably get top notch pay after getting a Michelin star.
Yeah. I wonder how hard they are to keep and how long do they come back. I wonder like. Once you get a star, do they come back and give you a rating for like if you get a 1-star?
Yeah.
How do you go up to a 2?
Yeah.
And how long does that process to get there? Interesting stuff, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you educating me on the Michelin Star. So did you first learn about this when you were watching The Bear? Is that how you kind of started diving into this?
Yeah. I saw them trying to get the Michelin star on the bear.
Right.
Right. And then I heard, like, I can't remember where I heard it at, but someone's like, did you know the Michelin star is the same as Michelin tire?
Oh.
And I was like, and that's when I started like diving into the history of
what?
the
I had
Michelin
no
star.
idea.
It is, I would strongly suggest if you are into history at all, look into it. Because there's even some interesting stuff around the wars and things like that with the Michelin Guide.
And how, I think I remember you telling me that off air.
The U.S. printed the Michelin Guide during World War II to give to its soldiers.
Like paratroopers and like the guys that were jumping in on D-Day and stuff like that.
A lot of people consider
That's pretty cool.
Super important because the maps were so good.
Right. That's wild. All right, so what's wild to me is that this guide came from a tire company, not a car company.
Yeah.
Because you would think you would want people to buy your car and then drive it around. So you give them somewhere to go, right?
Yeah.
That's odd that it came from a tire company.
Yep. It is. Good
stuff, man.
It was fascinating.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the history lesson.
Yeah.
I want another one of those recently or coming up soon.
Yep.
Let me know. So we ready to dive into the next thing we want to talk about?
We are ready to just dip our waters into the controversial topic of tipping.
For the last... Yeah, all right, so here we go. What we are going to talk about next, we're going to spend some time on.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have comments up or not, or if you can tell if anybody's...
okay. Nobody's chatting right now.
No, that's fine. That's
fine.
good.
Yeah.
But this will be a time when... people can
We'd
kind of
love
talk
to
about
hear your opinion.
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about tip culture. And what I mean by tip culture, for anybody that may not know, is when you walk into when you purchase something and they ask for a tip, so which is an extra amount on top of what you have already paid. This is the culture that I'm talking about. And for years and years, it was... you only tipped if you went out to a restaurant,
like
sat down and had service, or you only tipped your bellhop or doorman or somebody that was in the true service industry, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, I can't speak for the hospitality industry, and that's what I mean by like hotels and stuff. So, all right. Let me clarify. There is a industry that is called restaurant and hospitality, and they are linked together, right? And there is an actual major that you can get at the University of Memphis called restaurant and hospitality. It's one of the best in the country for that. And so hospitality is the accommodations, the hotels and motels, places like that. Now with Airbnbs, VRBOs, condos, whatever. That's the hospitality side. And then the restaurant side is where you dine, you eat, stuff like that. So they are linked together.
Yeah. And this is somewhere where I have zero experience. I've never worked in a restaurant. I've never worked in hospitality. But I have tipped a lot.
Well, and rightfully so. There is a place and time. And I think once we get done with this conversation, you'll kind of see where I stand on this whole situation. But so tipping in the current culture, in my honest opinion, is completely out of control. And I think, like an overall arcing spectrum here, the culture is causing fatigue. I think there is kind of like in some industries like ours, you can experience compassion fatigue.
Yeah.
I think people are experiencing tip fatigue.
100%.
And it's ruining tipping for the people that actually need it and deserve it.
Yeah.
So when you walk into all right, let me start off the conversation this way. What's the weirdest place you've been asked to tip?
Probably I've had the one that probably agitated me the most was at like a Baskin Robbins when you're checking out. And they don't, like, to be fair, they don't really ask for they don't have a tip jar out, but when you swipe your card, it asks you 10 or 15, 20 or 25% tip. And then they make the no tip button
tiny,
and like out of the way.
Yeah.
Like it is
like to the point where the people that just got done scooping your ice cream notice when your finger goes to the bottom right corner of that little screen monitor or whatever. So they know you're not tipping.
Yeah. And I've lost all compassion. Like I have. I will hit that button so fast.
Yep. I don't care.
Like
I don't care. I used to, and I mean, here in a second, I'll talk about my history and how I got here and how I got so jaded towards tip culture. So Baskin Robbins, that's a pretty good one. Man, I'll be honest, anywhere where I know the employee makes $15 an hour or more.
Yeah.
Anywhere. Like, all right, so Subway sandwich, perfect example. Those people are making a decent living, an hourly wage.
Yep.
And
their income is not based on tips.
Why am I tipping you for doing your job? You should. Starbucks. That's another one.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I don't go to Starbucks anymore. Coffee shops. Oh, Tyler, barista's an art. You know what? It's an art that they make $20 an hour. If you, I mean, seriously, and it's ridiculous that I have to tip because you made my coffee like you were supposed to make my coffee or my sandwich. Like that is your job.
Yeah.
Do it.
So here's my question. All right. When did it become normal to tip people outside of the service industry? Like at what, like, was it during COVID?
What do you mean service industry?
Like when you think, like used to, when you go to a sat down restaurant, you would tip.
Yeah.
Right. Other places might have like a tip jar on the counter, like at Starbucks or whatever. But like you knew when you were going to a restaurant and sitting down and eating that you were going to tip. All right.
Or you knew you weren't. You're one of those douchebags that knew you weren't going to tip. We're getting into that. I'm coming back to that. I'm coming full circle back to this, I promise. All right. So when did it change?
Yeah. Because like to me it feels like it was during COVID. There was like this weird change when you had DoorDash and you had all those things pop up. And like DoorDash I think was incredibly offensive because they made you tip before you got your food.
Yeah.
And like it became part of the deal where like part of your fee was the tip.
Yeah,
like,
I've never ordered DoorDash, so I don't know.
Yeah.
They make you tip before you.
But when you order on DoorDash, you tip at that point of transaction. Not when you get your food, not after the food. Like it's
this. I'm gonna flip the table over. Yeah. This completely okay. All right. I did not know this because I've never ordered DoorDash. This is a perfect example of the broken system. You are supposed to tip. The entire idea of a tip is for service above and beyond your job description or whatever you want to call it. And you... So I can tell. I could almost guarantee you. I wish I knew somebody that could call on the phone right now to see who works DoorDash. If they saw that you don't tip, yours goes to the bottom of the list. You are the last one getting your food.
It is common knowledge that if you don't tip appropriately, your food will be cold when it gets there. Like it is like holding your food hostage.
That is a terrible business. I would never. All right. I will never order DoorDash ever. I don't care how hard up I am. I will never order DoorDash. Yeah. That is the worst system ever.
But all this like ramped up in like 2020 and like COVID times and stuff like that.
Well, the DoorDash thing did,
but also people started tipping for like things that weren't normally tipped for during that time.
Because they were at
risk. They were out there doing their job, and I felt like people wanted to be compassionate and tip these people who were still working during COVID.
See, I don't think it's the tippers that drove this. I think companies started realizing that, hey, I mean, we'll just start asking for a tip everywhere. And if they don't tip, we're right where we started. Yeah. If they do tip, we increased. Think about it. Some of the numbers, and we'll pull them up officially here in just a second. Some of the numbers that we saw, some of the average tippers, it was around 15 to 17%.
Yeah.
You have increased your income, your profits, sole profits,
Yeah.
by 15 to 17% just by asking for a tip.
Yeah. And so and
That
this
is-
is so before we got here, one of the things I thought personally was that like maybe it was the credit card companies. Like it just made sense to just add that into the systems, right? But then the more I got to reading into it, the business owners have to opt in.
Yeah.
And they set the percentages.
Yeah.
They have to physically set the percentages.
Yeah. It's in the system.
Yeah.
I told you, it wasn't, and look, this is not something that they do to cover their credit card fees. All that stuff is built into your P&L sheets. It's just the cost of doing business, right? In the food service industry. So what drove, I think one thing also that kind of started driving tip culture crazy is the emergence of counter service. Do you know what I mean by counter service? So like your Chipotle's, your Nukes, your McAllister's, where you walk up to a counter, you order,
someone
and
makes
maybe,
your food order.
yeah, and
right
maybe
there in
they
front of
bring
you.
it your food to you because you got a number sitting on your like a Jason's Deli or Panera Bread, all those counter service places, and people didn't know whether they were supposed to tip or not. This, like those counter service restaurants, came to be and they were a kind of a transition. If you remember, for a long time, probably about 15, 20 years ago, in the emergence of these places, everybody was a little confused on what to do. They didn't know whether they were supposed to tip, not tip, pick up their own mess, leave their mess, what they were supposed to do.
Right.
And I think that kind of started this ball rolling into this weird tip culture that we have now.
So, in your opinion, what should be the rule on who gets tipped?
Like, that's easy. If you make under minimum wage, you should be that is a tipped employee position.
Right.
Anything over minimum wage, making a hourly wage that meets the minimum standard for the United States government.
Yeah.
You should not be a tipped employee. You should not ask for a tip.
Yeah.
There is a difference. And now, if I chose to give you a tip without you asking,
that's fine.
Completely different.
And that's one of the things, like you were talking about the counter service. I remember counter service when it, like, they always had like this tip jar at the end of the counter, you know? Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where, like, if it's like your regular place you go, sometimes you throw your coins in there from your change, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, you're not tipping 15, 20% on those people because they're already making, you know, $15, $16 an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
that's my point.
Yeah, there is value in having a good worker that goes above and beyond at those places and makes decent food. But then you get into the idea of, like, they have to share that tip with everybody.
I don't know. Look, I don't know how counter service works. I can get into how tip sharing and how tips work in the food service industry and actual sit-down restaurants. You know, all right, so it has gotten so out of control. I genuinely feel this way. And I know fast food is the next domino to fall, and it makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit. But if pretty much retail, mercantile places are the only places that don't ask for a tip anymore. Yeah. Everywhere else ask for a tip, no matter what. I mean,
I've even heard stories of, like, places who, like, people who sell, like, wedding dresses and things like that. Asking for tips. And, like, that's one of those things where I'm a little bit on the fence about, because it's like, first of all, if you're getting commission, I'm not tipping you.
That is your tip.
Yeah, the commission is your tip. Like,
right.
Second of all, I don't know how much you make, and it's not typically a tipped industry. So why? And, like, some of these things are expensive, right? So, like, you tip 10% on a $1,000 dress, you're still tipping $100. You know, it's like.
How do you feel about tipping your hairdresser or barber?
I'll be honest with you. That is one of the things is completely dependent on how good a job the barber does.
Okay. And
whether
so.
or not, like, right now, I'm kind of in between barbers.
Okay.
And the last place I went, it was really expensive, more expensive than I thought it was gonna be, and I didn't leave a tip. And I thought the service was meh. Like,
okay.
And so, when it comes to my hairdresser, like, if I go to a guy who, like, cuts my hair for $15, you know, I'll give him a 20, something like that. But like, if I go to a barbershop and they charge me $40 to cut my hair, I'm probably not giving you a tip.
Well, all right. So that doesn't mean. All right. I'm sorry. We have some. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not even really reading chat. Wait, cashiers at Dickie Stevens Park. Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Oh, that does kind of. All right. So I just went there the other day, and I don't know if you noticed this, but they put the hottest chicks in the beer garden.
Oh, of
right?
course.
You know,
Yeah.
like down there in the beer garden, and look, I do. Just because I was a bartender forever, I do tip $1 a beer. So if I got 2 beers, you get $2. The price, and so they put a percentage on there, and I'm always other because I'm not putting, I got 3 beers at Dickie Stevens Park. That could be $30 worth of beer.
Yeah.
I'm not tipping you 20%. I'm not tipping you $6 on that. You're getting 3
Yes.
because you poured 3 beers.
Yeah.
I did this for a living. That crap ain't hard, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. So no tip option is on the top list. You're right. It probably is. I don't know.
Yeah. I just know that I like to push it a lot of times.
Oh, I push it all the time and don't feel bad about it. At first, I did feel bad about it.
Yeah.
But I don't anymore.
Like, so I have an opposition to authority problem, and so when I feel something's forced on me, it's real easy for me to
I hear you.
I
hear you. Oh, I got totally sidetracked.
Yeah.
All right. Where I don't even remember where I was at. All right.
We're talking about tipping at like hairdressers.
Oh yeah. All right. So I've got a really cool. So I've been going to the same guy, and I mean, cutting my hair is not hard, right? And so I started going to a place right here by Gadwalls here in Sherwood, and 2 guys that work up there named Rick and Pete. It's North Hills Barbershop. And it's just like a barbershop that you would think. It's a bunch of old dudes. I'm 41 and almost the youngest person that walks in there, right? And I started going there because it was $5 for buzz cuts.
Yeah.
And so been going for years, ended up befriending this guy. Like, we have each other's phone numbers. We text message each other. We talk back and forth. We're both sports guys. And so it's fun. And so I go for the experience. Sometimes I have to wait an hour.
Right.
And so you go for the conversation, right? I go for the experience. And he still only charges me $5. After inflation and everything, he absolutely should have raised prices on me. But I've always handed him a $10 bill. $5, right?
Well, and I think maybe that is like, we put a value on the service, right? If they charge under the value that I think the service is worth, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, I'm okay. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm not even sure if that's considered a tip, but I'm gonna pay you what I think the service is worth if you've undervalued the service.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe that's my issue with barbershops, is like, I have an idea in my head of like how much my haircut should cost. Mm-hmm. And if they are just way over that, like, to me, you're already getting your tip. Like, you're already making your extra pocket change.
Maybe, yeah.
Because it takes you 10 minutes tops, and I'm out. You know.
I know. Yeah, but at the same time, you come from an industry being an electrician. If it took you 30 minutes to do the job, you spent years trying to at getting it down to 30 minutes. That doesn't mean that it lessens the value of your work because you did it quickly.
So my time frame is based on how long it takes me to cut my hair. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I mean, and like, to me, my haircut should cost about $20, $20 to $25.
Yeah.
And when I got charged $40, I was like, "Sorry, you're not."
Where did you go? No, never mind.
Yeah.
No. It's fine. No. All right. So, do you want to read some of the chat?
Yeah, we can. Here's a tip: lower your prices. Yeah, and we're gonna get into that here in a minute, because this is one of my pet peeves.
Look, for the record, I'm not suggesting that people lower their prices. That's not what I'm saying with tip culture at all. And I don't think it's most of the people that are receiving the tips are not the ones setting the prices. Most people.
Let's see. JJ says, people pleasers like me exist and would feel obligated to tip. And that's an important
There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
That's how it started. I'm telling you right there. That is exactly how it started. Is they started putting it out there, and people were like, "Ooh, I don't want to seem like a cheapskate, so I guess I'll tip, even though it makes me feel uncomfortable."
Yeah.
And then now they put you in a terrible position because you feel uncomfortable overpaying for something, and you felt pressured into it. And then if you don't tip, you feel uncomfortable because you feel like a cheapskate. What a terrible! Like, I will avoid those places at all costs.
100%. And so this gets into, okay, so let's talk about restaurant tipping for a second.
Okay. All right. Sure. Yep. Yeah.
Because like this is one of my things that I'm struggling with right now when it comes to tipping at a restaurant.
Okay.
Is that meal that used to cost me $10 now costs me $18. All right. If I'm tipping what's now 20% is kind of the standard on a tip.
Should be.
Right. My $10, 20% of $10 is way different than 20% of $8. So now $18. So as the cost of food increases, the amount of money you're tipping out increases, right? Should the percentage go back down? Because like I remember whenever I was a kid, a good tip was like 12 to 15%.
No, and here's why.
Okay.
Here I'm going to say no, and here's why. Is because those people make anywhere from $2.13. I don't know what the minimum wage is. It's been a while since I've been in the food service industry.
$2.13, and it's been that way since 1991.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. It's still it's same as when I was there. $2.13. So the cost of living went up for them too.
I agree.
So there's no reason why that is their living.
Yeah.
That 20% that you are tipping is how they make their living.
Yeah.
So it's more the life is more expensive for them as well. So we shouldn't take away from their pockets because the food got more expensive.
Well, and this is and I agree with you on that point. But my question is how far will the customer go before employers have to realize they have to pay a higher hourly rate?
All right. So here's
let
me talk. All right, I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah.
1 second. I'm gonna get to that. All right. So just a qualifier, I spent anywhere from 12 to 13 years in the food service industry. The only thing I didn't do in the food service industry was back of the house. So I was never a cook or a chef or anything like that. Everything I did was always front of the house. So what does that mean? So back of the house is the kitchen. Front of the house is the service staff. That's anywhere from your hostesses, your servers, your bartenders, and your managers for the most part. So I have seen it all. I've worked from anything from low-level catfish restaurants and mom-and-pop place steakhouses to fine dining restaurants where the average bill was $200. All right, so I've done it all. The employee of the food service industry making $2.13 an hour absolutely depends on your tip. And if you are going out to eat, okay, and you receive good food and good service, you should be tipping a minimum of 20%. That is the standard.
Yes.
Okay? Let me explain to the people that are listening right now and go, well, what if it is terrible service or terrible food? I'm not leaving a tip. First off, terrible food is not the server's fault.
Yeah.
Please stop taking it out on servers because you had bad food. That is on the restaurant. What happens is if you got bad food, let's say you got bad food twice at a restaurant and the service was decent, but you didn't like the food. It wasn't any good, right? It was crappy, but you liked your server. But because you had a bad experience, you didn't leave a tip, and you're a piece of shit. And here's why. Because, once again, that server was not at fault for your food. More likely, I will give you a scenario where the server was. But the second thing is if you didn't enjoy the food, then just don't go back to the restaurant.
Right.
You tip upon the service that you received, and then you leave the restaurant. Okay? And you just don't go back.
Right.
Now, here is a situation where most people, if they didn't work in the service industry, they don't know this, they can't tell.
Yeah.
Is if the server forgot to ring in your food or rang in the wrong thing or whatever it may be. Like there are some nuances to dining in a restaurant that you can tell.
Yeah.
Now you can blame it on the server. That is their fault, right?
So what about, and this is a situation I think everyone can experience. You go to a restaurant,
Okay.
a waiter or waitress has been given too many tables.
Oh God, yes.
Okay.
It's what we in the industry it's called being in the weeds.
Yeah.
Your server is in the weeds.
Yeah. At what point does that ever become the server's problem? Because if I don't get my drink refilled for 45 minutes, it makes me not want to tip as well.
Sure. And I understand that. And sometimes, yes, that's the server's fault, and no, that's not the server's fault. Right. So sometimes in a restaurant, it's management's fault. It's management's fault that they gave. There's so many nuances. All right. So it's the management's fault because they gave a section to that server, because every server has 4 or 5 tables that are theirs all night long, all day long for their entire shift. Okay. And they may have been given too many tables that they couldn't handle, right? So if they all went down. So maybe that server can handle that section, but a hostess sat them 3 times in a row, and now they have 3 or 4 new tables that they're trying to deal with all at once in a big party. And I can kind of tell, for the average person that's never done the job, when you go and you sit down, it takes 45 minutes for you to get your drink, or that's a long time. That's an exaggeration, but a long time to get your drink, whatever it may be, or get a refill. You may not notice some of the things that I can tell when my server is they're good at their job. Yeah. They're just in the weeds. Most people can't tell the difference in that. So in those situations, even if I get lackluster service and I can tell that the server is decent at their job.
Right.
And what I mean by decent at your job, I don't care if it takes a while for me to get a beer, a new drink. If I can tell that the restaurant's busy, you want to know a tip for all of you future servers out there. Just be attentive to your table. Yeah. Just come over and say, hey, I am busy. I am super busy. Yeah. I know I have not been paying as much attention to you guys as I wish I could. Yep. I'm doing my best, I promise. And you just keep saying that over and over again. And if you are just showing attention to them, then average customer that comes in is going to be pretty lenient towards you. Yeah. So going back to the tipping though, so even if you get bad service, you should be tipping a minimum of 10%. Yeah. Whoa, Tyler, but that means why am I rewarding them for terrible service? Okay, so here's why. Let me tell you how how tips work in a restaurant. Yeah. So a decent restaurant, a nice restaurant, there is called it's a tip pool, right? But it's not with the servers. So we call it I have to tip out at the end of the night. Yeah. So there is usually a person that stands in the window of the kitchen and the front of the house. They're kind of the liaison between the kitchen and the front of the house. And they make sure all the food that the kitchen is putting out is getting put on the right trays and going to the right table. Yeah. That is called an expo. Okay. And that person usually earns about 1%. Okay. Okay. And then you have your bartender who is making your drinks. Okay. And so not only are they making drinks for the people that are sitting at the bar. They're making drinks for everybody in the restaurant as well. That usually garnishes 1%. So then you have your hostesses who are responsible for handling the front door. They're handling the wait system. They're seating people.
They're seating your tables appropriately.
Right, seating your tables appropriately. Then you have this, and I call these, they kind of fall on the same thing for me, is you have server assistants and bus boys, right? Okay. Or bus people. Yeah. I can't just say boys anymore. So, and those people usually garnish another 1%. So giving on any type of restaurant system, you could be tipping out anywhere from 3 to 4% a night. And so what does that mean, Tyler? Well, that means that I'm tipping 3% of my total sales that I had for that night, net sales before tax, are immediately gone. So 4% out of my tips, out of my money, I hand to a manager, and then they divvy that out at the end of the night. Yeah. Okay? So let's say you come in and you run up a $100 bill and you were not pleased with your service and you tip, or, I mean, you forget to tip or don't tip at all.
Yep.
I now have essentially spent 4% of my earnings to wait on you.
Yeah.
I have tipped out 4%. I have paid money to wait on you.
Yeah. And I agree with you.
That is unacceptable. That is, I mean, who does that? What other industry are we in where I actually pay money to work?
Yeah, and I think that going even further than that, as a person who's never worked in a restaurant, I operate on the fact that I have a social contract with the restaurant industry, like with the system that we have, that I'm going to subsidize the worker pay when I go eat at certain restaurants.
And you should.
And now what that temp amount is really where my question is. Like I understand, like I know we're a little bit different here in America. I know in a lot of countries they don't really do the tip service type world, but we have all agreed to this. We all have a restaurant that we go to, and like we know we're subsidizing those workers so that restaurant can stay afloat.
Yeah, okay. Profit margins in restaurants are very
super low.
Yeah,
and so Barnaby, hold up. I'm aware of that, and so I just need to know like sometimes it hurts a little bit when I'm tipping 20% on an order that that used to cost me $30 and now I'm paying $50. And on top of that, if I know the restaurant has tip sharing, and I know that my waiter or waitress isn't going to see the full benefit of my tip, it makes me not want to tip as much.
Well, you're just hurting the person you're trying to help.
I know.
I'm just educating you. I'm just letting you know. You're hurting that person. But look, so the reason why that exists is because those people that are getting that 4% that I talked about earlier are, in theory, supporting the server. So it's all about supporting the experience. So they are doing things that help the server provide better service to you.
I get that. What I'm referring to is I've seen restaurants who they have a tip pool. And all the waiters and waitresses they split the tip pool. Yeah,
well, those are usually your smaller restaurants where you have 15 tables and the turnover, you're doing more volume than you are like high scale stuff. So, and that makes sense. Like everybody waits on everybody's tables. Like, that kind of communist system is not terrible. I mean, in certain restaurants it works, right? Yeah. But it takes a special group of people and servers that get along and know each other. Yeah.
You get one bad apple in that group, and it makes people upset.
You usually only see those type of restaurants in like lifers, right? So people that have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, they're 40, 50 years old, and they all know each other, and that's usually the only time that works.
Like one restaurant, and don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure does it, is Buffalo Wild Wings.
There's no way. I don't think they do tip pooling there.
You don't think so?
I mean, when they first started opening up around, I knew several friends that worked at them, and they I don't think they do tip pooling there. As a matter of fact, I know they don't.
Okay, but yeah, that and maybe that's just my misunderstanding what tip sharing is, because so I worked in outside sales for a little bit, and you shared your commission with your inside support.
That's like tipping out. That's like tipping. That's what I'm saying. Same concept. Yeah.
Because you can't do your job without them.
So tip sharing and tip pooling are two different things. So tip sharing is where I'm giving that 4% to the support staff that you're right, that we're doing some type of support role. Tip pooling is where all of our tips from every table go into a jar at the end of the night, no matter who waited on them, what they did, all that, and then we distribute it evenly amongst the four of us. Right. That's tip pooling.
Okay.
I think Gadwalls does that.
Okay.
I think. I don't know. I know they do it with their to-go orders for sure, because they, I mean, they all help with the to-go.
So that's an interesting topic. What do you tip a to-go person?
So here's Jenny asked me this all the time. She's like, well, what am I supposed to tip? Customary 10%.
Okay.
Because, and it really depends. I kind of stopped getting weird about it and just started doing 10% because some restaurants, they have a designated to-go person, right? And that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so 10%, I mean, that's what they're making actually a higher hourly wage because they're to go, right? So they are making an hourly wage. But most places now have eliminated that position to cut cost. And it's just normal servers trying to fill that position in as they're waiting on other tables.
Yeah.
That person has gone out of the way, out of their time to make sure that my food has gotten baggaged up, put where it's supposed to be. Yeah. Minimum 10%.
Okay.
For to go. That's what you should. It's super easy. Those people are doing a job. There is something that they are servicing, and usually, I mean, 10% is nothing, man. Like for real. It's
no, and I agree with you. It's just there's so many places to tip now, and it's like trying to navigate what.
I'll make it super easy for you. If you feel uncomfortable about tipping, don't tip. That's the thing. You should only feel good about tipping.
Yeah.
Okay, let me clarify. Sorry. When you go sit down in a restaurant, those people waiting on you are making $2.13 an hour. You should always tip. Don't be a cheap ass.
Yeah.
Anywhere else, tip where you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I
don't
agree
tip
with you.
just because culture tells you that we should tip.
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
But people have gotten used to it now.
Yeah. See, that's the thing.
And that's
the problem. That is the problem.
Like.
Is they have created this culture now where it's just like, oh, guess that $5 coffee is $7 now.
Yeah.
No, people, we can start a revolution. We don't have to tip every time you go buy something. All right, so here's my idea. I do want to, before we move on.
Yeah.
We're in the podcast. So here's my solution. I had a great idea.
Okay.
I think I was at I don't remember where I was talking to Jenny about. But I was having a conversation. Tipping in general is an antiquated system. It needs to go away. It absolutely needs to go away. It needs to go away because we have an industry that's dying and it's not drawing as many talented people as it used to. And the majority of the Great Resignation during COVID was food service people.
Yeah, it was.
And I'm proud on them. Like honestly, that was the kick in the butt that a lot of food service people needed to get on and move on with their lives. I'm not saying you should be a lifer in the food service industry. Kudos to you if you are. I couldn't personally do that. That just wasn't for me because it's not a job. It is for real a lifestyle. Yeah. And anybody that has waited tables understands that.
Dude, and those people, I can't do that job.
No, I still 12 years removed from the industry. Just last week had a server anxiety dream. I'm not kidding. A server anxiety dream, 12 years removed.
Yeah.
I only have anxiety dreams about being naked in grade school and waiting tables. I'm serious. Anyways, so we need to do away with tipping. Well, Tyler, how am I going to know if I get good service or bad service, or what? Nobody's going to care anymore. They're not going to want to give me any good service. It's a completely wrong attitude to have about it.
Yeah.
So I will admit, the restaurants won't be able to absorb that cost.
Right.
You're going to see a 20% increase on every menu item that you have on the menu.
Yep.
Okay. And that is what you're spending already.
Yeah.
Okay. You're spending that 20% already, right? So if you can pay that person to come in to work and
hold on 1 second.
Yeah. We got some
dog issues.
Yeah.
1 second, guys.
No, it's all right. So if you pay that person an hourly wage to come in and do the job that a lot of people honestly love, I think the industry would improve, and you don't have to worry about getting bad service. Not everybody is going to all of a sudden just start becoming a bad server. This is where if you get bad service, you talk to a manager, the manager talks to the employee. It's just like any other job. Why do people make this hard? Why do they think that their service is going to go down immediately now that their employee, that the person waiting on them, their job isn't dependent on your generosity. I can't tell you how many times I would stay awake in the middle of the night. And this is no joke. And everybody that's done this job can understand.
Yeah.
Your entire livelihood depends on the generosity of human beings.
Yeah.
And that's not a great
and
way to live.
There's a lot of
man.
them that aren't generous.
No, it's terrible. Nothing was worse than, I'm telling you, when you had a big table and somebody would stiff you on a tip, and then then you just realize in your own head, I paid to wait on that table. It's miserable. But so what I'm saying is we need to stop. We need to stop tipping. Pay these people a decent hourly wage. The stress of their life starts to go down. They actually become better, more productive employees. They're actually doing experiments inside of New York and Chicago and some of these other places and restaurants, genuinely trying to move away from that.
Yeah.
And I think as a customer, if we just started, it's just kind of like when Walmart and all these stores started putting in self-checkout. They just kind of eased it in slowly but surely, and then the next thing you know, it's all self-checkout.
Yeah.
So I think if we just kind of ease everybody into it, the next thing you know, just not tipping anymore is just is going to be the norm.
And I think you're right. And I think you'd see a lot of restaurants get away from waiters and waitresses, though, and just have counter service.
No, right? You can't.
Like
that won't exist.
You don't think so?
No, you'll always have sit down traditional. That's what people want to do.
Yeah.
Our entire dining culture is built around that experience.
Yeah. So
you will always have that experience.
So you think that if we paid waiters and waitresses $18 an hour, do you think that would be enough to make it worth people's while to actually do those jobs?
I don't know. So here's where it gets dicey. As a server, I would have to look at my hourly, how many hours I work compared to what my tips were averaged out over 6 months.
Yeah.
Right? And so then that's how I would factor my hourly wage, what I'm worth.
Right.
And it's probably higher than that.
Yeah. And
it's probably closer to $25 an hour.
I think it's closer to 25.
Yeah.
I don't
today,
know
but but think.
I don't know
but
that
think
I would
about
do
it.
that job for $25 an hour.
You can absorb. You can absorb that cost super easy.
Yeah.
You genuinely just raise your prices 20%.
Yeah.
And then somebody has to take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
You put it on your menu. You put it everywhere in your restaurant for 12 months.
Yeah.
Every customer that walks in your front door, you look at them and go, "Hey, we're trying a new system here. This is a restaurant where you do not tip.
Yep.
Do not tip.
Yep.
Right? And so if you want to tip at that point, then you can.
Yeah. No, I think this is a great idea. I would love to see a company do it. Like what?
Okay, first off, I didn't say don't tip.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely just all right, sorry. I do want to rechat, and I get on my high horse, and I do want to rechat, and I do want to interact with you guys, but I get on my high horse sometimes. But I'm saying it just takes a couple restaurants, and it just takes changing the mindset. And I think you can genuinely bring back talented people to the service industry.
Yeah.
Because you're spending that money anyways.
Yeah.
You're spending that 20%. Now look, there are going to be a handful of people that are like, I'm not going out to eat no more, and those are the people that are tipping 5% or stiffing.
Yeah,
people.
you don't want those
Whatever.
people anyway.
I don't want those people in my restaurant anyways. You can keep your business, take it somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think to the no tipping point though is we do have to stop tipping at self-service. We have to stop tipping when it comes to counter service.
Yeah.
And
those people are making $18, $20 an hour at Starbucks. People, stop tipping those people. They don't need it. I'm telling you.
I went to Chipotle the other day.
I'm not doing it.
It was $17 for a burrito and a drink.
And then they asked for a tip, didn't they?
No, they have a tip jar. They don't actually ask for tip.
That's asking for a tip.
Yeah.
That's asking for a tip, because every time you walk past that tip jar, you're the evil person that didn't contribute to somebody's drug fund. I don't know. That's not fair to say. But you get my point. And I don't know. If you feel like you got good service or you want to go above and beyond, then absolutely tip. But these counter service places and Starbucks, stop asking me every time I run my card if I want a tip.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Well, and I think there's a mentality that we've lost when it comes to tipping, where used to I wanted to tip someone for good service. Like I wanted to thank them for the service that they provided.
Sure.
And I don't feel that way anymore. And I don't, I'm trying to figure out what that
I told you. I told you. It's jaded. The tip culture has jaded people from tipping.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where it's swung so far back to the other side. We're all like, nah, I ain't tipping. I don't care. You know, I don't care how good you did. Uber drivers. Should you tip Uber drivers?
Yeah. Well,
for doing their job and getting you where you need to go safely? Like, oh, thank you for not killing me. Here's $10.
Yeah.
No, it's bullshit. I mean, I'm going to do it because I'm not a piece of shit human being. But
the taxi service has been built on tips.
Right? I guess that's true.
And
I guess that's an established industry. They're riding, though. I guess and you're right.
I've looked at how much Uber drivers make. It's not great.
Okay, so they're surviving off tips?
They're surviving off tips.
Okay. All right. I mean, I always tipped anyways. I don't use Uber much, but every time I did, look, people, I'm an over tipper, and my wife will tell you so, okay? I tip overly. I'm saying that the culture is broken. Yes. I'm not saying I'm a piece of crap human being, because I'm not. I believe people that don't tip are pieces of crap. I'm just done tipping everywhere. I'm done.
And it's affected the restaurant industry negatively because that mentality is swept over
fatigue,
that.
Man.
And
I believe it.
I just want to get back to a point where I enjoy tipping someone for the job that they've done.
Yeah.
And not someone trying to push a tip on me, right? And DoorDash, quit asking for a tip before you get the food.
That's terrible.
You're holding food hostage. It is stupid.
Oh, let's read some chat. I agree. Yeah. I don't want to talk about DoorDash because I don't know. I don't want to incriminate myself.
Yeah.
All right, so we didn't get through this. All right, so we did read JJ's comment, and then Fireman. All right. I'm sorry, my contacts are messed up. That is the only reason why I tip at restaurants, because I know and have been paid that $2.15 an hour relying on tips as a newly married man. Mm-hmm. Is that a joke? Was that a joke? Or is he being like, are you saying you've done that job? Or are you saying
that job.
Okay.
Anyways. And a waiting job can be a good source of revenue. And the hours are kind of like,
dude, it's okay. Secret's out. Mm-hmm. All right, as Bert Kreischer would say, secret time. Yeah. I mean, I made one of my best years ever. I made 40s. Now this was in 2008, 2009. I made 40
so we're talking
grand.
2009 money.
2009 money. I made 40 grand working 25 hours a week.
Yeah,
and a lot of that was tax free.
Yep.
Hush hush. So it is good money. I don't think it is anymore. Yeah. I honestly, I think because of the tip fatigue and stuff, and people just don't go out to eat as much anymore. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
So all right, you want to go through? All right, 10 worst tipping states. Is Arkansas on there? Please don't be on there. Please don't. Yes.
It is not. It's not. It's also not on the best list either.
Okay, somewhere in the middle is fine. Mississippi is Mississippi. I went to high school in Mississippi.
Illinois was an interesting one for me.
Illinois. Yeah. I wonder. All right, so Illinois here. Put it up on the main screen for us.
All right, let's see here.
Go. Yep, there we go. Yep. All right. So, 10 worst tipping states. Illinois, congratulations. You're a piece of shit state. Who would have thought? Mississippi, gosh, does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me at all, actually.
14%. I wonder where did the USA Today get these numbers, first off?
I don't know. Tennessee kind of surprises me. But let's look at this, though. The percentage, 14.22 for the lowest.
That's not terrible.
It's not a bad,
average?
For an average?
Yeah.
If you look, the parity, though, between the best, which is California at 22%, Missouri at the top at number 2 at 22%. That was surprising to me.
Would not have thought that. Florida makes sense. It's a touristy state. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Actually, with Florida. California, I wonder why. California is at the top.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You would think tipping fatigue would be the worst in California.
Probably.
After paying all them taxes and
then just everything. Yeah, everything's stupid expensive.
Let's see here. So
average tip percentage by annual income. All right, so it breaks it down. So I can't read those numbers.
15.4% for 30,000 or less.
All right,
it's not terrible. I mean, honestly, as a country, we're not tipping terribly. I don't think these numbers are embarrassing.
What did you expect them to be? Like
bad.
8% or something?
I was expecting like a 10% in some places.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so what is it? All right, so let me see my income bracket. I'm not going to say what it is. I'm just looking.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not terrible bad.
Yeah. It's not terrible. I think I tip more than that.
Oh, I know I do.
Yeah.
Once again, I'll tell you, I'm an over-tipper. I overtip
now,
on everything.
This was one thing that interested me.
Okay.
All right. So the national average is 18%.
Average tip by education level. This is interesting.
Yeah. So associate's degree is the highest.
An associate's degree?
Associate's degree is the highest tippers.
Right. Just a little bit of college, but not too much.
Yeah. And
graduate degree, some of the smartest people in the world.
Yep.
17%.
Yeah, high school or 18. Less was the low one, which that makes sense. They don't have much money anyway, but
true. But I think this just proves that education level doesn't necessarily correlate to tipping.
No, and I think it may have to do more with
your income.
Because I feel like middle class is going to be.
But these days, man, none of those. Dude, bachelor's degree, graduate degrees, some of those people are actually working in restaurants. Doesn't mean that they make a bunch of money because they have a doctorate.
Yeah.
I mean, a doctorate in...
Yeah. Fireman, yeah, you're right. Missouri does have Branson, and that probably ups the...
Oh, yeah. See? Tourist, yeah.
Yeah, in California, that's probably true about them, too, because there's a lot of tourism in California. Tourism probably drives up tipping.
I would imagine.
Because I think people generally tip better on vacation.
Oh, yeah. Duh. Yeah. It's expendable income.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here.
By age.
Yeah, or your generation. And, of course, the oldest generation is the lowest. Everyone else is pretty around the same level.
Even, yeah.
Yeah.
We're all in that. So the national average was 18. So that... So I bet over the last 20 years that's gone up about the average. Yeah. I bet the average was closer to 13 because there for a long time, even when I got in the food service industry, the average tip was 15%. It's 15. It's 20 now.
Yeah. And I wonder how much of it is changing because like I remember before COVID, okay?
No.
It was
before
cheaper,
COVID?
It was cheaper for me to eat out than it was for me to buy groceries.
One person, okay? Sure.
I was by myself most of the time.
Yep.
I'm going you can't buy groceries in one person quantities. It just doesn't work. You got to buy family quantities, and it's not that way anymore, right? It's cheaper for me to eat at home, and maybe the value of eating out is tipping. I'm saying tipping at scales, not tipping.
Sure.
I wonder how much that has to do with tipping fatigue.
All right. Fireman does tech. I gained more customer service experience than anything being a server, which has helped me out greatly in my other jobs I have had. Dude,
yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a massive life skill that you learn. And so it's stress management, resource management, just
dealing with people,
juggling. Learning how to deal with people is numero uno for sure. But learning how to manage 5 things at once and memorize things, and it is a true test in how you handle stress. It is not for everybody. And the people that come out of the food service industry come out better employees and tend to be some of the most talented people in the workforce just because of the skills they learned. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I think California is at the top due to the culture of people pleasers over there, and Missouri at number 2 just because Branson. Yeah. You already read that. Okay.
Yeah. It looks like men are better tippers than women.
That's just because women do girl math. Jenny, that's for you.
Yeah. this was
what people report about tipping guilt.
Yep. 40% said yes, 46% said no, and 14% I don't know.
Wow, that is fairly even.
Yeah.
About have you ever been guilted into tipping or tipping higher than you would ordinarily? 40% say yes.
Yeah.
That is massively high.
That is a huge reason for tipping fatigue.
Whoa, I would not have expected, even me talking about this, I would not have expected that to be that high.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah. That's bullshit.
Yep.
All right. Do you agree with the following statement? I feel societal pressure to tip more.
I don't know that I do right now. Like, I think right now my issue is a conflict of, like, my own personal...
Dude, look at this. Between the top two answers, between strongly agree and somewhat agree, you have 67%. So you're going to... Okay, you may not feel that way, but the rest of America obviously does.
Yep.
That is... See, it's got to change, people. Yep. And you want to know where it changes? With us.
Yep.
Right here, right now, this podcast, we're starting a revolution. Tipping fatigue is real. See, I have not read this article. All right, before we started this podcast, I had not read this article. Tipping fatigue is real. More than half of those we surveyed said that too many places are asking for tips, while 48% report that they are downright tired of being asked to tip. I couldn't agree more, people.
Yeah.
It's gotten out of control.
Yeah. And I think that the other places asking for tips is ruining the restaurant industry.
No, I agree with you 100%. I really do too. I think that there's just a misunderstanding of when to tip and when not to tip. And so, anyways.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I've had fun today.
I really have to.
This has been I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to us.
All right. I do have one question for you.
Oh, okay. I thought we were...
I want your recommendation right now. Minimum tip at a restaurant where you sit down and eat.
10%.
10%.
10%. You get bad service, 10%.
Okay.
10%. And hey, people, here's the most important part. If you get bad service, okay, and you genuinely think it's your server's fault, or even if you can't tell, doesn't matter. You leave a 10% tip, and then you ask for a manager. And when the manager comes over to the table, you respectfully and kindly explain your situation and why you left 10% and the type of service you got. The only way a restaurant is going to learn how to get better or get rid of that bad apple server is if you tell a manager. All right? That is the most important part. Don't be a Karen. That is not what I'm saying. Don't be a Kyle or a Karen and start yelling at a manager because they put a lemon on your water. That is not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and don't be that person that leaves the note on the receipt. That's a tip. That's advice for life. Don't do that.
I wish, dude. We used to have a book at one of the restaurants that I worked at that we kept all those in. People that would write things down on people telling me how to do my job better. Yeah. That was always fun.
Well, guys, man, I've had an absolute blast, and I think this is an interesting topic, and we may come back to this at some point.
We may. I mean, all topics we talk about on here on this podcast are going to be quickly or easily revisited. You're going to look. We're doing this for fun. I feel no pressure to follow any kind of regular script. So. I hope it was at least semi-educational and entertaining. I hope you learned a little bit, if you don't work in the food service industry, a little bit how tipping works. And I hope I gave you an explanation of why you should tip at least a minimum of 10%. Zach educated us on some Michelin stars, where it came from, how it works. So when you go visit a Michelin star restaurant, you know what? You can educate your date if that's what you decided to do.
That is.
All right, guys. Well, we really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Tyler. This is Zach. Catch you next time.
Yeah, thank you for the support, guys.